Welcome and Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Kitshanu B'mitzvotav V'tzivanu La'asok B'divrei Torah. And let me find the place. So, at this point in the story, what happens is that Jacob discovers that Joseph is still alive. The brothers come back, they tell him the story about what happened, and that Joseph wants him to bring the family down to Egypt, and he will provide for them. And we read a little bit of piece, a sort of one time in this whole story where God appears to Jacob and reassures him about going down to Egypt, that
Oh,
Jacob is not sure
Rabbi,
about he wants to do that. Yes, yes.
it's
Go.
it's very strange that Joseph didn't somehow tell his father where he was. It's very strange. I mean, here he is in Egypt as a prince. He could have told his father, sent somebody over there, said, "I'm still alive. Don't cry. Don't aggravate yourself. I'm here." He didn't do that. Why?
Well, he didn't send him a tape, and he didn't have a phone, and he sent a message through the brothers to
He
tell
have a
him
cell
that
phone.
the main issues. So, I mean, let's we can go back and take a look. I mean, we have to go back a little bit um, to see what he actually told the brothers to tell him. Okay.
But
Um,
maybe
sure.
Harlan's talking about during all the years previous to that. I actually heard a really good Dvar Torah on that
Yes.
on Shabbat,
Okay.
where people were saying, okay, when he was in prison, he couldn't tell his father he
Hmm.
was alive,
Hmm.
but afterwards, when he was in charge of Potiphar's house or when
Hmm.
he was a prince,
Yeah.
why didn't he tell his father, "I'm alive"?
Okay. Go ahead.
Um, so there's apparently a lot of machloket about that,
Hmm.
controversy.
Hmm.
And one person says he thought that his father was in on the plot to get rid of him
Hmm.
because his father sent him to find the brothers,
Hmm. Hmm.
and so he and his father uh, never sent out a search party, to save him, and he was afraid maybe the father had been in on the brothers' plot, and
Hmm.
there
Hmm.
was no point in telling him I'm alive.
Hmm.
Um, but the other side of it says that he didn't want to notify his father because it would mean telling the father that the brothers were criminals, basically,
Hmm.
and he didn't
Hmm.
want to destroy the peace of the family.
I agree. I think the second one makes a heck of a lot more sense. His father thought he was dead, okay? And it says that Joseph used to bring back reports on his brothers, which supports the reason why he went to see, he wanted to say, how's he getting along? And the brothers didn't necessarily share with their father how they felt about Joseph. So I also think that Joseph wasn't sure. First, I think the second reason is really cool, but the other piece too is put yourself in Joseph's position. Try to imagine to yourself, you know, the memories that Joseph had about his experiences back in the land of Canaan. And I think there's some midrashic, early stuff that talks about how Joseph in many ways was assimilating to his new situation as opposed to what it would have been like. I mean, you have to ask himself at that particular point, what would he have accomplished, not knowing how the brothers felt about him? He had to go through this whole thing in order to be reassured that his brothers no longer harbored the grudges that they had against him. And that's the whole point about it. This is a story about tshuva. So that's part of what's going on here. So I looked at to see what Joseph actually what they said. Okay, so basically, he says, here it is right here, take your cattle, go and come to the go to the land of Canaan, take your father, the house, come to my, and I will give you the goodness of the land of Egypt, and you shall be able to have the best of the land, okay? Etc., etc., etc. Okay, so here we go. Gives them the suits of clothing, and it says so. Let's keep going. He says, "Don't hold up in the way. Get going, move." They go from Egypt. They come to the land of Canaan, and this is what they say to the father, Harlan: "Od Yosef Chai." Joseph is still alive. Vehi hu moshel b'chol eretz Mitzrayim. And they say, in fact, he governs the whole land of Egypt. Now, I think it's clear that that's the message he needed to give. I mean, it's the Torah isn't going to go into lots of details, etc., but it basically gives you the essential message that Joseph gave to his father, basically reassuring him that he was doing fine. Also, think about it. Remember when Joseph told his dreams to his father and his mother, it says his father remembered the matter, right? So that would have reassured him on that level. So this is where we were yesterday. I'm going to get rid of that. We did this yesterday, where God speaks to him. So I don't know that there's any objection there. Let's keep going. I want to come to where he says. So this is what the verse that we were reading yesterday. Anochi ered imach. God says to him, "I will go down with you." Remember, we talked about the symbolism involved and how that foreshadows Jewish history. And here it goes. Vanochi al chav gam alo. I will certainly bring you up, take you out. And just to finish the verse, because we didn't actually finish it, V'Yosef yashit yado aleinecha, and Joseph will place his hands upon your eyes. And then we started to look at the Rashi. We didn't start the Rashi yesterday, so here we go. Va'ani elcha, I will come up with you. Hifticho, this is remember, God is speaking to Jacob, but in fact, of course, Jacob never returned to the land of Canaan. So how is this, that God brought him out back from the land of Canaan, back from the land of Egypt to the land of Canaan? The answer is Hifticho. God promised him, Liot Nikbar Ba'aretz, that he would be buried in the land of Israel, which in fact happened. We'll actually read about it, I believe, in vaYigash. We'll read it in the next parsha. So that's part of this promise that God gives to Jacob at this particular point. So that's this vision, this prophecy that Jacob has in this entire story. Vayakom Yaakov mi Beersheva. Jacob arose from Beersheva. Vayisu v'nei Yisrael et Yaakov avihem, and the children of Israel carried Jacob their father, ve'et tapam their children, ve'et neshehem and their wives, ba'agalot in the carts, asher shalach paro lasetoto, which Pharaoh sent to carry him. So of course we talk about how Joseph sent them, but obviously Joseph didn't do it without Pharaoh's permission. Let's see if there's anything else. Let's keep going. Vaikhu et miknehem, they took their cattle, ve'et rechusham, and their possessions, asher rachshu be'eretz Canaan, which they acquired in the land of Canaan. Vayavo'u Mitzrayma, and they came to Egypt. Yaakov, Jacob, v'chol zaro ito, and all his seed, all his offspring, everyone, absolutely everyone came. So Rashi is looking at the fact that it says, why does it say in the land of Canaan? Couldn't have just said, and all the possessions which they had possessed, right? They'd taken possession of. Why does it go on to say Be'eretz Canaan, in the land of Canaan? So he says that's a diuk. That's to exclude something, right? Dafka, the land of Canaan, he says. So here we go. Asher rachashu be'eretz Canaan, which they had acquired in the land of Canaan. Aval ma sherachash bepadan Aram, but that which he had acquired in Padan Aram when he was back with Laban. Natan hakol Esav. He gave everything to Esau. This is information that we were not aware of before. Bishvil Chelko, he gave it to him so that he would have the part. This was for Esau's part, the Marat HaMachpelah, in the cave of Machpelah. So he paid Esau with everything he had that he'd acquired in Padan Aram, for the privilege of being buried in the cave of Machpelah. Asher, he said to himself, Jacob thought, Nichse chutza la'aretz einan kidai li. He said, everything that my property, my possessions from outside the land of Israel, they don't mean anything to me. Vezehu. So what support do we have for this? So it says later in Vayechi, it says, Asher kariti li. Okay. So what is this? In Genesis 56, where he refers to things that he had acquired. So it's Genesis 55. Let's see if we can go there quickly. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go get a Bible and I'm going to turn to it and we can take a look and see what it says. I believe he's saying this to Joseph regarding his possessions, but let me see quickly. Okay.
So here we find the rest of the daughters.
Yes, we do. Yes, we will.
So we know there's more. And maybe more sons too.
Actually, no, I think they're actually referring to granddaughters, I believe.
It says daughters
and daughters-in-law. Yeah, but daughters-in-law.
Yeah.
I mean, it says, I think Rashi said to us elsewhere that people consider their daughters-in-law or sons-in-law their sons. If they have a really good relationship.
Oh
But
yeah, I
here we
forgot
go.
that.
Okay, so let me see. It says 55. Right. So this is what Joseph says actually to Pharaoh. Do me this favor and lay this appeal before Pharaoh. My father made me swear, saying, I'm about to die. Be sure to bury me in the grave which I made ready for myself in the land of Canaan. That phrase, which I made ready for myself, is kariti li. So it's definitely a reference, right, to the cave of Machpelah. There's no question about it. But the karitili seems redundant. Why is that necessary? And here's how the tradition interprets that karitili, that ambiguous and puzzling expression. He'emid lo tziburin shel zahav. He set up piles of gold, v'shel kesef, and of silver, kamin kri, like a pile, like a kari. So it uses that term, kri. V'amar lo, and he said to Esau, tol et elu, take these. So they understand kariti li means essentially I sold to Esau for the right for the burial rights in the cave of Machpelah. And again, these kinds of stories, etc., raise all kinds of questions for us to, first of all, there's the parallel of the fact that Abraham paid an exorbitant price to Ephron, the Hittite, for the purchase of the field and the cave, and here we have a similar kind of thing. I mean, clearly there are things for us to learn from this, and just how significant it was. The significance of the cave of Machpelah, and what it represents. And of course, the idea that knowing where a person is buried, where a relative, for example, is buried, gives us a link of some kind with that person, even though they're no longer around. So,
Right. Rabbi, this is similar to Joseph. Joseph said, "Don't take my bones from Egypt and put them in the cave. Bring them back to the cave," which
yeah.
Moses did.
Well, I'm I don't know that Joseph is buried in the cave of Machpelah. I'm
Oh, I
not,
thought he
I'm not,
was.
I'm not aware that
All right.
Joseph is buried there. But he absolutely did say to them in the very end, he said, God will bring you out of Egypt. He will take you out of Egypt, and at that point, take my bones. So that's why, so Joseph himself isn't buried immediately. His remains are taken with the Israelites back to the land of Canaan. And again, there's always symbolism involved in these sorts of things. So let's keep going here.
Yeah.
Uh, Banav, uvnei banav, his sons and his grandchildren, right? Ito with him, benotav, his daughters, uvnot banav, and the daughters of his sons. So I do think it's talking about daughters-in-law when it talks about his daughters. V'chol zar'o, all his seed, all his offspring, hevi ito mitzrayma, he brought with him to Egypt. So here we go. Rashi, uvnot banav, the daughters of his sons. And he says it's a reference to Serach bat Asher. Serach, the daughter of Asher, is mentioned. The Yochevet bat Levi and Yochevet bat Levi. And we know who Yochevet was. What's Yochevet's significance?
I don't know.
Little quiz question.
Moses's mom.
Correct. It's
Yeah.
Moses' mom. So she wasn't born in Egypt. She was actually born as they came into Egypt. That's the tradition. Into the next aliyah. Ve'ele shmot b'nei Israel haba'im Mitzrayma, and these are the names of the children of Israel who came to Egypt: Yaakov uvanav, Jacob and his sons. Bechor Yaakov Reuven, the firstborn of Yaakov, Reuven. Rashi, haba'im Mitzrayim. Literally, of course, it's ba'im would be imperfect, incomplete action. Al Shem Hasha'ah. He says, because of the moment, they're describing the moment, Koreh lahem hakatuv ba'im. They're talking about that moment, and that's why Scripture refers to them as ba'im, who are coming to Egypt. Ve'ein litmoa al asher lo katav asher ba'u, and we should not be surprised that it didn't write who came to Egypt, right? That it isn't written in the past tense. It's the narrative present, right? Because as the narrative is going, so the language is going.
I was wondering, Rabbi, where did you get that number 70?
Well, you can start to count if you want, all right? So we now have Reuven. There's number one. So you just keep the count going, okay, everyone else, right? Uvnei Reuven, Chanach, Ufalu, V'chetzron, V'charmi. So we have four sons of Reuven. Uvnei Shimon, Yemuel, V'yamin, V'ohad, V'yachin, V'tzochar. So we've got, so next we have Simon, and we have his 5 sons, and Shaul ben Haknaanit, and Shaul, son of the Knaanit. Let's see if Rashi has something to say about that. Here we go. So, because Knaanit sounds like it's talking about Canaanites, right? Ben Dinah, interesting, right? He was the son of Dinah, which is interesting because at this particular time, that means that Sheniv Allah Laknaani, who became pregnant by a Canaanite, right? That is by Shechem, Keshahargu et Shechem, but when they killed Shechem, and remember, Shimon and Levi were the 2 brothers who were at the heart of this whole awful moment, right? Lo
Right.
haita Lo haita Dina rotza latzeit. Dina refused to leave ad shenishba la Shimon, until Shimon promised her, swore to her, sheyisa'ena, that he would marry her.
Mm-hmm.
So that's this implication of this interesting way in which the Torah is describing Shaul. So Shaul is the son of Dinah, who was she conceived through Shem, but Shimon became responsible for her. So onwards, Uvnei Levi, Gershon, Kahat, Umerari, and the sons of Levi, Gershon, Kahat, and Merari. V'nei Yehuda, Er ve'Onan. We know about Er and Onan, the sons of Judah. V'Shela and Shela, V'Peretz v'Zarach, and Peretz and Zarach. We know that Peretz and Zarach he had with Tamar. We know that it says here, Vayamot Er ve'Onan be'Eretz Canaan. Er and Onan can't be counted in this 70 because they died in the land of Canaan. Vayu b'nei Peretz, Chetzron v'Chamul. And the children of Peretz were Chetzron and Chamul. I'm going to see if there's anything here. Nothing until verse 15. Uvnei Yisachar, the children of Yisachar, Tola, Upuva, Ve'Yov, Ve'Shimron. I don't know that I have to translate that for you. Uvnei Zevulun, Sered, Ve'Elon, Ve'Yachla'el. Ele b'nei Leah, these are the children of Leah, Asher Yalda leYaakov b'Padan Aram, who she bore to Jacob in Padan Aram. Ve'et Dina bito, and Dina his daughter. Kol nefesh banav uvnotav. So the Torah gives us a running total here. All the souls of his children and his daughters, shloshim v'shalosh. We're talking about 33.
Rabbi,
Yes.
is that a different Yov or the same Yov?
So it isn't it isn't Eov. Eov is Job, if that's who you're referring to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, his name is Eov. And
Okay.
incidentally, the tradition is that he was one of Pharaoh's 3 counselors. That Pharaoh had 3 counselors. One of them was Job, one of them was Jethro, and I am blanking on the name of the third one. Oh, yes, I believe it was Bilam. Bilam was the 3rd counselor of the wicked Pharaoh. And see, so Job, I think, I'm not sure. One of them ran away. One of them, Bilam stuck around. Job and Jethro didn't. I believe, I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure Jethro was one of them. I believe he had 3. Forgive my memory. I'm doing the best I can. All right, so here we go. Ele b'nei Leah ve'et Dina bito. These are the sons of Leah and Dina, his daughter. Hiskiram. Okay. When he makes mention of them, Tala b'Leah. This is a sort of interesting little bit of biology that we're going to be learned. When he makes mention of them, he talks about them as the children of Leah. That's what he means by saying he hangs them on Leah. They're dependent on Leah. V'hanekeva tala b'Yaakov. But notice, when it comes to Dina, right, it's him. Right? It says, Ele b'nei Leah, these are the children of Leah, but it says, Ve'et Dina bito. It says, Dina, his daughter. That's the point that Rashi's making. Lelamecha, to teach you, Isha mizara'at tchila, that if a woman, and this really means to give seed first. So I'm assuming that if the egg occurs first in intercourse, Yoledet Zachar, she gives birth to a male. Ish Mazria Tchila, however, if the man emits semen first in the course of intercourse, Yoledet Nekeva, she gives birth to a female. So, what can I tell you? Rabbinic biology. I don't know if there's any support scientifically for that particular theory. Again, one has to sort of take this and process it in the context of the culture that's where this is being said. So shloshim v'shalosh, and it says they're 33. It mentions shloshim v'shalosh, 33.
Yeah, but we're not counting any spouses at all.
No, look at this. No, no, wait.
I
Yeah,
can't, I
no,
just,
you are right. We're not
yeah,
counting
right. There's
spouses.
just,
I know,
yeah,
that's right. It doesn't count
Right.
daughters-in-law specifically.
yeah.
And I
Or
realize
the
that sort of,
granddaughters that should
well,
be there
no,
too. Right.
apparently it does. It does count granddaughters. So I think, I realize this opens up cans of worms, okay? But I
Oh,
think
yeah.
the idea is that the husband and the wife are one unit. And the issue that the wife's name isn't mentioned explicitly has probably to do with the culture, that particular culture and that particular sensitivity, that they are one unit, and the idea of the woman, not her name not being mentioned, would have been understood, at least in that culture, as an issue of modesty. And for a woman to act modestly was considered to be a very great thing.
Yes,
Can you go
So,
but
ahead and finish
70
this, Rashi?
souls is not 70 souls.
Can you go ahead and finish this, Rashi? Because I'm I'm
yes.
I'm not going to be able to stay late.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. So he says uvifratan I atam motse ela lamed bet. But he says if you actually count up the names of everyone here, you're only going to find 32 names. You're not going to find 33, and it says 33. So there's an
You have to count
inconsistency.
Leia. You
Wait.
need to
No,
count Leia.
wait. No, no. Okay.
Just let him
You can
go.
count Leah. Let Rashi say what he has to say. Okay. Ela zo Yochevet, but that 33rd is Yochevet, shenolda ben hachomot, because she was born bet between the walls, literally is what that means, beknisatan la'ir, when they entered the city. In other words, she was born on the trip to there. As they were entering Egypt, she was born. And that's why she's not counted, because she didn't come from Canaan, okay? But that's who it is. It's not Leah. Leah is, again, you said the wives are not counted separate from their husbands. And I think that's consistent. Okay. Shinemar, as it states, here we go. Asher yalda ota lelevi, to which she bore to Levi b'Mitzrayim, in Egypt. Leidata b'Mitzrayim, her birth was in Egypt. Ve'ein horata b'Mitzrayim, but the her mother's pregnancy, right, while she was being her conception and the pregnancy were not in Egypt. So yeah, Golda. I mean, I'm not here. As I said, if you feel that this explanation isn't as good as counting Leah, that's up to you. But this is the traditional explanation. So they're being consistent with not counting the wives separate from their husbands. And there's as I said, it opens up cans of worms in our current culture. But there's a lot, if one is open to just thinking this through, there's a lot really to this. There really is, to think about. Uvnei God. Oh, so it's 8 o'clock. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to see if I can put in the arrow. Do I have an arrow to put in somewhere? Let's see. Okay. All right. Let me do that. And so we have a place to start tomorrow. And of course, we have the rest of the children to count. Here we go. So we'll start there tomorrow. I'm going to pop in the bookmark. Let's see if I can. All right. And stop the share and stop the recording and thank those who are with us.